Today we're looking at Romans 12 and being living sacrifices. The book of Romans 12, it just tells us so importantly how we can do this. But we're going to be focusing today on Romans 12 verses 10 to 13. Be devoted to one another in love. Honour one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervour, serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer, and share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Good morning, my name's Billy Jo, and thank you for inviting me to share today with you. Let's just start by agreeing and recognising that today can mean so many different things for so many different people, men and women alike. Today is one of those days that could be sad, it could be joy, it could be somewhere in the middle. But today we want to celebrate Paul's word here in Romans with one another. And we want to look at the roles of women in and around us and our church and our ever-growing congregations. What impact have they had? What impact will they have? What impact might you be able to have in the life of someone else? We want to celebrate being a part of God's family and having mother figures in our lives, those to encourage us and sustain us and strengthen us, but also to remind us of our boundaries and our limitations. We want to encourage women to recognise that they have a role to play in the wider sense of the body and sharing those gifts and strengths of being a woman figure. We want to challenge you to invest and sacrifice as Paul instructs us to in this passage. And we want to open the eyes of your church to consider mothering and fathering role models and figures around vulnerable children who are currently in the care system. Home for Good exists as a Christian charity to raise awareness and inspire churches to think about their part to play in either becoming foster parents, adoptive parents, or supporting those within your church who would want to do this through prayer or fundraising, maybe even giving to the work of Home for Good so we can expand the work that we're able to do. Paul is giving us instructions of how to be family together in Romans 12, 10 to 13. In this letter, it's a very simple aim. It's to help guide and build people in the unity and community of family. These few verses are really strong set of instructions to build each other up. Essentially, Paul is saying that as we do these things, we will bless our family. We will grow in being family and becoming family. One way that we are blessed through the family of God is through the mother figures in our lives. Again, recognising that some may be with us, some may be in heaven, but recognising the importance of those mother figures in our lives from within our church communities and wider. As we celebrate Mother's Day, some of the words that Paul has said here encapsulate totally the mother figures in our lives. Some people, females, may have persevered with us through thick and thin. A youth worker may have invested to commit to praying for you. Maybe there was a social worker who saw something else and something better in yourself and encouraged you or those around you to continue that positive narrative. Or was it just a friendly hug in a time of struggle? Maybe it was a teacher or a health visitor or a nurse or a midwife. Any female who goes that extra mile for you is who is being spoken of here. I wonder who comes to your mind when you consider the mother figures that have been in and around your life from naught to now. Then look at these words of Paul. How have they demonstrated these words to love, be by your side, never lacking in zeal for you as they invested in you? This question, however, does really invoke a myriad of emotions and memories. Some of us will recall loving embraces, grandmothers and teachers and kind and safe people around us. And for others, things could have been a bit more complex. What we do know that is in this word, what we do know is that in Paul's list, it displays the beautiful heart of God and exemplifies women who have invested in us. Mothers and mother figures really matter, and their passion and their commitment shape us. We can see this time and time and time again in the Bible. Pharaoh's daughter bringing Moses out of the water into her home. Moses was fostered into a family where he grew up, and he went on to do incredible things for the kingdom. I don't need to tell you that. Deborah leading Israel and listening to her people and bringing them peace to the nations, that's in Judges 4. Lydia providing hospitality to Paul and Silas on their release from prison, Acts 16. Mother figures and strong women are at the core of who we are and how we experience life. Now, I've already said that for some today can be quite difficult, and this is the case for me. You see, I didn't grow up with a mother figure who demonstrated these words here in Romans. In fact, I grew up in a really chaotic upbringing in an impoverished area, and I was in and out of care throughout growing up. I was the eldest sibling of 3, and in all of our placements we weren't ever placed together. We were placed separate places, separate homes with separate foster carers, but we were sometimes geographically close together and able to see one another. This meant I grew up with a really different idea around women and in particular female role models. And so when I became a member of the church at the age of 28 and I began to see the love, the commitment, the care, the kindness that women could give, I found that a little bit difficult to first understand and then accept. But women like this in the Bible showed me that those around me were only living out the gospel. That when I was upset and crying because I just didn't know where to turn to, when it was hard to parent my children, or I had a moment where I just was unsure about things, there were women around me. In fact, there's my mentor who has invested in me from not just being a Christian, but before I was a Christian. She became my friend. And in being my friend, I saw how her life was different, and I liked what was different about it, and I grew to want to know more. And it was her who happened to be the leaders of the Alpha course that I went on, and then after Alpha, after I encountered Jesus, she became a house group leader for us, and we joined her house group. And that was 12 years ago, and still to this day she is investing and discipling me. She's now my mentor. In fact, I have the privilege of calling her my spiritual mum. And her husband is our spiritual dad, therefore spiritual grandparents to our children, and they play that role in our family. But aside of that, we have aunts and uncles, other mentors, other carers, other people who have invested from within the female congregation into our children and into us and into our marriage. Couples speaking into our marriage, couples speaking into our parenting, couples showing us how it is they helped grow their children and disciple their children, and we've turned to them. That's this passage in reality, and I'm sure and certain that this passage is also happening in your church. So celebrate what you've done, celebrate who you've invested in, look to see who you can invest in further. It matters and it builds the kingdom. Paul's encouragement to faithfulness invites us into the larger story of God in the world. I'm going to read you this. In 1844, a baby called Melvina Shields was born as a slave in South Carolina. At age of 6, she was brought to a nearby farm with a family of the name Shields. Being a slave, her identity and name was changed to theirs. Her family would endure 5 generations of journey that began in the oppression and would lead her to the descent to become the First Lady of the USA. Michelle Obama. On Melvina's gravestone it says, "Theirs is a story of hope." If we could take time to travel back to Melvina on her farm as a slave, and you told her of the great-great-great-grandchild that would be in the White House, what do you think her reaction would be? Disbelief? Joy? Hope? No doubt it will have been all of those things and more, but this story reminds us that your investment in someone today will bring a brighter tomorrow. So as we think about these women, who and how they have invested, the traits that they have of patience, listening, understanding, caring, going that mile above and beyond. We at Home for Good, I at Home for Good, say thank you for building others. And for those that are here thinking, well, I need mother figures like that, the Lord helps us stand in the gap and be the light and the love to those who need it. Reach out to your community and say, that's what I need. So what does this mean to you as individuals or as a church family? How can you care for vulnerable people who may not have had the positive experience of mother figures? As you look at those who have blessed you, how can you bless others? As you look at the ministries that you as a community invest in, the friendships and the families, where are you connected to vulnerable children through fostering and adoption? Through being the very early story of Moses? How can your church take on the challenge of being good mother figures in your wider area outside of your church community? Out in your wider area to children, youth groups, scouting groups, girl guiding groups, swimming groups. The need is so great. And as we see, Scripture celebrates the importance of these women's stories. We need to make sure equally that we rise up and stand alongside women who bring life and love into our lives. A few questions I leave with you. Is God calling you to be a mother figure to somebody who needs it? Is there a figure you feel prompted to encourage and support? Is God calling some of us here to step forward into fostering and adoption and becoming a mother, role model and figure for a vulnerable child who needs one? Is God calling us to use our voice, our influence, our prayers and our money to make sure that every child who needs a home has one? Let's just take a moment to watch this short film, Because of You, from Home for Good.
Gayla is my mum's friend at church. She taught me to swim before my school trip so I wouldn't be left out.
Keris is my support worker and she helps me communicate. She stands up for me to make sure I get what I need.
I meet up with Becca every month. We just chat and it really helps.
One day when I was feeling angry, I bashed my bike against the wall. Our neighbour Karen came to mend it without making it a big deal.
Mum and Dad adopted all three of us, so I wasn't separated from my sisters. And when I still feel that I need to look after them, Mum helps me understand and gives me special time to be myself.
My youth worker Kate listened to me and helped me tell my parents what was happening.
Tessa is a teacher in my church. Over the summer she's spent lots of time with me, helped her move my letters and numbers.
Mum has always been there for me, and I've never felt different to my brothers, who are her birth children.
Mother's Day can be difficult for many of us for a variety of reasons, but especially for young people in care. It can be a painful reminder of relationships lost or parents that they never knew. It can be a painful reminder of relationships that are difficult and strained. But it can also be an opportunity for them to be thankful for the many women in their lives who have nurtured them and cared for them in the way that Paul writes about. You could be one of those women. Could a young person or a vulnerable child experience the love of God and the radical hospitality that the Bible talks about in your church? I'm here today because people like you cared for me. You could be part of someone else's story, starting today.
I'm so grateful to the many people, and females and males, who have invested in my life, because those fundamental building blocks don't exist. But with their care, their love, their support and their prayers, I have and am a mum to 2 children, a wife and a Christian, growing in her understanding of God and the Bible and what it means to outliving this. So I pray for you, for your communities, as you continue to think about those questions and look around you to see who it is that you can thank for investing in you and who it is you can invest in. If you want to know any more about the work of Home for Good, please do be in touch with us. Our inquiry line is always ready to answer any questions you might have. But from a care experienced adult to you, thank you, the church, for standing up, for investing and for being the mother and father role models we need. God bless. Amen.